Put on some pants at least. You're gonna get some skid marks on the bottom of your chin.
That's some nice cold coffee, man. Nothing is better than some cold coffee when you really need to wake up because you can pound that shit.
Is it hot coffee that has sat out, or is it like a nitro brew?
No, dude, nothing like fancy like that. I didn't plan this. I literally just like poured a cup of coffee and then I went and brushed my teeth and then came back and, the coffee was lukewarm at that point. And then I came down here and sat it here on my desk for about 10, 15 minutes while we were bullshitting.
Where
And
it's
now
obviously chilly.
Yeah, it's a little chilly here. I'm wearing a hooded sweatshirt because
there's a storm up there right now, right?
I believe so. I don't know. I haven't even looked outside yet, because I can't stand what's going on outside right now. It's just too boring outside.
Hang in there.
Nothing turns my crank right now. I'll tell you that right now. But Bob, let's do a show.
I like shows.
Yes. Welcome to the Stiff Truth, everybody. This is Scott Casanova, and with me, as always, Mr. Bob West.
Hi.
It is. Bob recently is very excited right now because Bob's excited right now because he recently just got to remove his helmet and remove his special jacket that he has to wear. So he's going to be joining us. We do have some people on his end kind of making sure that he doesn't fall out of his chair too much, and I think we've kind of we've sanded down all of the corners of your desk and removed all the pens and any sharp utensils, I believe. So how are things going over there, Bob?
Good. I just got finished duct taping my styrofoamy onto my desk so that there's no sharp corners. Because the last thing you need is sharp corners. Doing really good. Exciting time over here at West Manor.
Is that what we're calling it now? I like that.
Well, it's like the guest house at the manor, but we are closing on our house.
Woo! Come on, baby. Come on, yeah.
That's pretty big fucking deal, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
So, we look to close here in the next 3 weeks, so we're excited about that. Is it just me, or is that like period of closing on like your first house, like the longest period in your life? Like what is that? It seems like I'm like waiting for a child to be born at the hospital with my wife or something.
It's intense. I think there's a lot of nerves. You're anxious, you're excited, you're a little bit scared, maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of things going on there, but it does kind of draw things out. The longest period of your life. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how things go with your wife or if she's regular or whatnot, but yeah, I'm sure this is the longest period of your life. So,
well, it is a little nerve-wracking, right? Because when we move here, are they going to put in a pool or do any extensive digging in the backyard? I don't know. Are they going to find out? I don't know. So no, but yeah, really excited. It's really all I can think about. It's really hard to focus on school. It's hard to focus on work because it's all about like my to-do list with my Linda, right? Let's just get all this shit knocked out and keep moving forward. So other than that though, long time coming. And,
hey, how was the inspection? Didn't you do that on Friday?
It went well.
Yeah.
He also didn't find any bodies. So that's good.
Bullet dodged.
For real. So yeah, the inspection went pretty. I mean, it's a 20-year-old house, so there's little maintenance that he's recommending that I need done, but nothing that I need to like put in front of the offer and like, all right, let's take a look at these parapets on the roof. And no, everything I can probably handle for like under a couple grand and just general maintenance stuff when I move in. So I'm not too worried about it. Overall, though, the house is good. He said it's a solid house for its age. So
let me ask you this. I'm not sure. I can't remember if I did this or not, but are you feeling now a little bit differently about your current place of residence now that this is going to be happening?
Oh man, like instantly, like this place became such a dump. Like instantly, you're just like, oh my god, we just need to get into this new house. It's so nice. This place is such a shithole. Why did I move my family here? Right? But up until that point, it's been a pretty good house, right? But definitely the paradigm shift about this house. It's just like this is like now becoming my ex-girlfriend, and we're like in the middle of a slow, drawn out separation.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
like every time I look at this house, its attitude just makes it look a little bit uglier. every time I flip on like a utility while another one's running, and I have to go kick over the breaker, this house gets a little bit uglier.
Yeah, you're looking at the shutters. They're a little bit soggy over there. You're like, I can't even believe I ever found that attractive.
Right? Well, the bushes in the front are dying and they're drooping. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Can't wait to get into this nice house that's just got a fresh makeover.
That was a good way to put it. I like that. But well, no, all exciting stuff here. I'm excited with you, my friend. Good times over here, man. But I'll tell you what, we got an exciting day coming up. This is I guess it's the second most exciting pivotal day of NFL football today too. We got the championship games coming up, the AFC NFC championships. Pretty exciting stuff here, man. I'm just going to go ahead and ask you here too, because I'm curious. We did, before I ask you, we did a pretty damn good job on predictions of who was going to be kind of left standing at this point. And we did this, I believe, initially like last May or April or something like that when we started doing, predictions. But what do you think's going to happen today, bud? What do you think?
Well, originally I want to say I'd have to go back, but originally I said that it was going to be a Steelers.
You did. You fucked up
Packers,
there a little bit.
right?
Yes,
Steelers
yes.
Packers Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But
Can we go ahead and just say the Steelers probably aren't going to be there?
I don't think they're going to make it. I mean, it's not looking very good for them. I don't think they could fight through not being in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. That's really going to be Big Ben's ultimate test to see if he can make it to the Super Bowl now.
So, really, I'm never going to bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs. So I'm just going to say that Tampa's going to be there. I know they whooped the shit out of the Packers the last time they played, and it was
38-10.
Yeah, it's an embarrassing showing for the Packers, and they're going to want a little bit of redemption. But I don't think they're going to have issues either side with motivation. But when it comes down to it, I think that the Bucs are a much more rounded team as far as they have a defense. And the Packers defense isn't near as good. So I think that they're gonna play better, but you never know. Playoffs, football's crazy sports. Crazy shit happens, but I really do think it's gonna be the Bucs. And on the other side, I'm going Bills, man. I think the Bills defense is going to show up today, and I think they're going to have a hard time with Josh Allen. Basically, Patrick Mahomesing them. The Chiefs is them. They're going to have to deal with a guy that is probably a little bit more athletic than Patrick Mahomes. And he's been playing at an MVP level. He's been leading that team, and I'm pulling for the Chiefs to lose. I mean, a little bit of humble pie would suit Mr. Mahomes and his $1 billion deal.
Yeah. I like where you're at there, Bob. I will say this: if we go back and we talk about who I said was gonna be in the Super Bowl, even though I may have a slightly different opinion now that we're here, I said Chiefs. I said Chiefs Packers.
You did.
So honestly, that's not like some kind of dynamic prediction. I think they're like probably a couple of the highest rated teams at the start of the season too.
They're both like the number one seeds,
right? So yeah, I mean literally like the number one.
But when you made the prediction, there were no seeds yet, right?
Exactly,
they're just leading their division.
So we kind of went off of that. Now, and here's the tough part, man. I have to regretfully agree with you about Tom Brady. You really can't bet against the man when he gets this far into the playoffs. Hence why last week I was screaming at the fucking TV. I wanted him to lose so bad. Just let Breeze squeak by. You know what I mean? Because I don't really care what happened to the Saints or what have you. But once they stamp their ticket to get to the championship game, his odds, regardless of how good the defense is playing right now and how good the team has really upped it, right? Just in general, even offensively, it exponentially, his odds of winning just went up just because what is this? Honestly, like his 19th or something ridiculous, like championship game or something out of hand.
In the high teens. It is very ridiculous. Yes.
Like the closest person to him, I think, has like 7 or 8 or something crazy like that. And they're not playing right now. So you got that going on. I really hope the Packers pull this one out. And you made a good point too. Packers, they don't have as good as defense, but last week when they played the Rams, they looked like they had the Rams defense. You know what I mean? It was very interesting. So kind of again that any given Sunday element. They came out, they fucking showed up, and they beat arguably the best defense in the league for the year, right? With the Los Angeles Rams. So it's interesting. I see the only kind of benefit really taking Brady out of the Bucs right now is putting the Bucs in Lambeau Field. It's going to be cold as shit today in Lambeau, and it is a home game. They're going to have people in the stands, so that bodes well for Green Bay to have a little bit of that home field advantage. But then you throw Brady back in the mix. He's used to playing in New England. You know
absolutely.
what I mean? It's not like
The cold doesn't bother him at all.
yeah, it's not like the
I
cold.
mean, it does as like a 43-year-old guy, like it does us. But as far as football goes, it's
Sure.
not going to really affect him. He's very much used to that.
Yeah, his fingers and his knees might be a little bit more sore than some of the younger guys out there. So it's a wash to me. I really think that's going to be the most interesting game today. I think it's going to be the most competitive game too. I think it might be the closest game is Brady versus Rodgers, because both those guys too have a knack for ridiculous comeback wins. Right, we've seen them from both guys.
Of course,
So
yeah.
that should be.
I mean, that's two goats right there. I mean, that's this playoff has been awesome because we had
Great
Breeze,
games.
Rodgers,
Great games.
Mahomes, Brady. Like, we haven't seen this many like amazing, Hall of Fame quarterbacks in the playoffs in a long time.
Well,
That
even
new
Phillip
generation
Rivers,
is
too.
coming up. Yeah, Phillip Rivers, another Hall of Famer.
Great quarterback, man. And he hung it up too at 39. Respectfully hung it up. Did you hear that, Brady? You should hang it up before you turn 40. Let everybody else have a goddamn chance.
Yeah, and I think Breeze is retiring too.
Yeah, well, it's that was a bittersweet thing, I think. But he's had a fantastic career. So there's that. But if I'm gonna have to do it, I'm just gonna say today, I think the Packers get the win. I think they get the win. I think it's going to be super close. This is going to be within a field goal is what it's going to be.
That
I think
whoever has the ball last sort of thing.
Yeah, pretty much, or whoever doesn't fuck up at the beginning or something like that. It's going to come down to one play. It's going to come down to one play that kind of gives the team the edge. That's just my prediction. And on the other side, I have to agree with you. I think Kansas City knows that the Bills are looking really strong on defense. Like you had mentioned, Josh Allen is lights out this year. But I think they're going to come in there with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, maybe a little bit ill prepared because they're at home. They're getting Mahomes back. There was like this concern that he would not get to play, but he, passed concussion protocol. He's back in.
Did you see what happened with that? So did you see the hit that he took?
Yeah.
So he didn't really, it's not that he hit his head so much. The dude tackled him and like hit a nerve in his neck. Do you remember the Masvidal knockout where he kneed that guy in the neck right off the bat and knocked him out in like 3 seconds?
Sure. Yeah.
He just kneed him in the neck and he just was lights out. I'm pretty sure that's what happened to Mahomes. I don't think it was a concussion at all. I mean, if you look at the head, his head never really hit anything, right? But he got hit right on the side of that neck when his neck was bent. And so I think that's what happened. And I think it was very similar to what happened in that Masvidal famous knee knockout.
Well, and it kind of rocked his foundation. You saw him try to get up after that, and he like fucking just like kind of fell like a sack of potatoes again. And he's like, "You're whoa, dude. Yeah, that looks pretty intense." But yeah, so he's back. He's back because honestly, Chad Henne is the man. He did a pretty damn good job. It kind of showed me that the Chiefs just have a great team all around. I mean, we knew this, but we kind of thought like almost, taking out the general or something like that with Mahomes, that they would start crumbling. Not the case. It's
Chad Henne running for 13 yards on third down to go win the game was like Drew Bledsoe running for a first down. I mean, that play took so long to happen. You're just like, he can't possibly make it all he's going. He's going. And like 8 seconds have gone by since he started running at this point. And you're just like, is he really going to make it? Like, what are they doing? Are the Browns just really sitting there watching this guy run? And it's just like, no, they're walking over towards him to gently lay him down. And that was it, man. He showed a lot of moxie.
Yeah.
With those last few plays from Henne.
You're right. I mean, they had plenty of time. I believe he even stopped in the middle of that run for a quick water break or whatever.
Right. Took a break, put some hands on his knees, caught his breath.
Took a knee real quick, splashed some Gatorade on his face. So there's that. I mean, I just think that I think there's more I think there's more room for the Chiefs to fuck things up. That's just honestly what I think right now. But this is what needs to happen on the other end. I'm going to take the Bills, by the way. So I really think it's going to be Packers Bills. So I'm changing my prediction from months back. But for the Bills to win though against a team and Mahomes like the Chiefs, there's going to be three people that need to be just on point and just working together. Obviously, Josh Allen is going to need to be there. Stephon Diggs is going to have to really show up and have really good hands and just really create some separation. And honestly, I think if Cole Beasley can be that guy in the slot too, that's just very elusive and very dangerous, that will be enough to throw the defense off a little bit. Who do we cover? Who do we double? And just constantly give them somebody that's open if Josh Allen just can't take it himself. One thing that I don't really think matters at all here, it'd be nice to see him step up, but if the Bills could create some kind of running game, that would be phenomenal. But I don't think we're going to see much of that. I don't
Other
think
than Allen.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
for me, I mean, Josh Allen has to get around 70 or 80 yards on the ground for them to just like really wreak havoc on that Kansas City defense. And he can do it. He does that a lot. Especially in the playoffs. He's been really likely to take off. But if he gets up there towards 60, 70, 80 yards on the ground, the Bills probably are winning that game.
Yeah, and then it's going to be hard for Kansas City to I think just defend that team.
Yeah, because all you got to do as a quarterback is get a couple of like chunk plays of 10, 15, 20 yards rushing, and then that changes how the defense plays you. Now they have to be a lot more cautious. They have to send a spy after you. It gives you more coverage options to bust their coverage because now they're down a guy in coverage because they have to keep an eye on you. And if he can do that and start dictating to that defense how they have to play, then he knows how they have to play. Then he can predict how. It's much easier as a quarterback when you know what the defense is going to do.
And it would be fantastic if Devin Singletary could really just be a contributing factor to just catching balls out of the backfield, dude. I think literally as a running back, he's usually a good like first, second down back and things like that. But if he can be like their passing back this game too, and just because there's going to be plenty of times where he's not going to have anybody to throw to, and he's either going to have to take off or he's going to have to throw a screen or something to him. And that's where that guy's been dicey all year, right? He had a great year last year, and then he kind of came in and shit the bed this year. So we'll see what happens. But I literally think three guys: Allen, Beasley, and Diggs. If those guys are on fire today, then I think it's just going to happen. I think we're going to see.
Let's not forget that defense, right? They have to be at their best.
Yeah, and I think they will. I think they're going to be fired up. I think they're going to be playing well. I think the noise in Arrowhead can be, it's going to be disruptive, obviously. So hopefully they don't get a lot of offsides calls and things like that. But they've got fans there too, right? You know what's funny? It's like the COVID protocol kind of
I don't know.
out the fucking window once the playoffs started, which I thought was kind of interesting. But hey, I can't blame them. They had a lot of people in Green Bay last week. I know that. But so that's it. That's Bob's got Tampa Bay and the Bills. Scotty's got Packers Bills. Either way, should be exciting. Whew.
I'm looking up how many fans they'll have, by the way, so that I can.
I want to say there was like.
See what that is.
Do I want to? There was like. Oh man, I can't even quote. I think there was like 8,000 people at Lambeau last week. There's a decent amount of people. It looked kind of cool because they were still spread out and socially distanced and everything, but it was filled up enough in the stands where it was like, all right, this is cool. Now we got fan support. Now this is good.
17,000 fans out of a stadium that holds. I want to say it's right around 100,000.
Yeah, super spreader or not, we'll see what happens. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a big stadium, so 17,000. They're probably seating them, good 5-6 feet apart. I would imagine. How they've been doing it for like the college championship games and the bowl games and everything is they've been they're selling groups of tickets. So then you come with your own like risk assessment there, but then after that, then they give you like a good 10 feet or whatever before the next group of people, and then they like skip the row behind you and then the next row up or whatever. So that's how they're doing it. What I've seen is by groups of tickets and not every other person.
Shit, man, that reminds me. Did you see the footage of Tuscaloosa after Alabama won? Not
no,
good.
I stopped watching that game at like the second quarter.
Well, I mean, long story short, it looked like a scene from Mardi Gras or something like that. I was like, "Ooh, there's a super spreader right there, buddy. Just waiting for it." But hey,
Yeah,
People
that's
don't
what
care.
happened when Notre Dame beat Clemson during the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
Just super spreader event instantly.
Yeah.
It was 80,000 people on the field. It was crazy.
Fun times though, man. It's sad though. It's almost over. We only got a few more weeks left of football season, but we actually, on the stiff truth here, we made it, Bob. We were actually able to power through, still record on Sundays, and still watch football. I think we did a good job.
Yeah, we had to mix it up, but we did. We adjusted to our game schedules, and I think we did a pretty good job. Luckily, like our games they weren't always like the most watchable games. So it was
That's a nice way to say it. You're like, what's going on right now? It's like, I can watch that later.
Are the Cowboys playing? Yeah, I've got them on. They're muted. Whatever. I don't. They're winning 6 games this year. It's gonna be okay.
Hey, not too bad. Hey, we did predict our teams. I think we were
terrible.
Yeah, but I think we said mediocre, subpar, almost, but not quite. I mean, we're 7-9 and 6-10. I think that's right where we like to be.
Well, 6-10, 7-9. That's
winning the division.
Yeah, that's like a 500 record in other divisions, and that's an NFC least winning record.
This is true. This is very true. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's switch gears a little bit here. I mean, obviously, we're well past the honeymoon stage here, but we've got a new president. And first, I do want to say something real quick. If anybody listened to the last show, I'm gonna throw an apology out there. I was a little worked up last week. I'll say that right now. My passion was flowing, and I did kind of use a blanket generalization, and basically said that almost everybody supporting Trump kind of puts vomit in the back of my mouth. There are some people out there that don't fit that mold, so I just got to make that one quick little kind of clarification right there. There's some people out there, honestly, that just hate the left and hate Biden so much, and they don't really like Trump. And that's what I just wanted to point out. So I didn't mean to blanket generalize everybody being a piece of shit, just most of you. Okay, I feel better.
Well,
I feel better about myself. I mean, you know what I mean? That was clear conscious now.
I'm just I'll say this, because I don't really want to keep talking about Trump, but I will say this: the GOP accepted the risk. It's simple risk management, right? In 2015, and they wanted to go with a TV show person that could get votes. Fine. They went with them instead of a politician, instead of someone that knows policy, instead of someone that knows how to watch their fucking tongue and mind what they do and say on camera, so that they don't say and do stupid things like incite violence. And for the first 3 years, it was all good. There was nothing to be done. It was just, let's worry about the economy. Let's get our tax bill passed. Let's just block the Democrats from doing anything, and we'll be happy. We got our guy. Look, guys, it's all working out. Year 4 comes around, and there's an actual, okay, well, you have to preside over the nation as a president would. And he got faced with a crisis to have to be a president with. And he just simply couldn't do it. He doesn't know how. I mean, how can someone that is so egocentric actually put the concern of the nation and other people in front of? They can't. It's an impossibility. That's what a mental disorder is. Like, you just can't do it, right? And so then they got fucked. They got fucked that 4th year with this president that was an idiot when it came to actually having to do something for the country that had nothing to do with business. Right, it had nothing to do with business or the economy or stocks or nothing, right? And he just didn't know what to do. And his arrogance made him incapable of seeking help to actually do the right thing. And the risk management then came out, and it bit the GOP in the fucking ass. And they took that risk up front, and they knew it happened, and they rolled the dice hoping that nothing would go down for 4 years, and they almost made it, but then they didn't. So, I mean, what's happening to the GOP right now is that's a lesson to be learned. If we're going to do a lessons learned after action report here of why you pick the candidates that you pick to run for president, because your party's future is literally on the line. Now he's talking about making basically a Trump party, a patriot party, which will destroy the country, because then the Democrats will win every election. because then a third of the Republicans are voting for the Patriot Party, and then these elections are 60% to 30% margins to 15% or 20% or 30% or whatever it is. And then that could very well kill the Republican Party. In fact, Paul Rand basically said that exact same thing just about a week ago.
Rand Paul.
Rand Paul.
I thought there was a new guy in Congress. I was like, he sounds familiar.
he basically said the same thing. If we lose Trump's base, it'll destroy the Republican Party because we won't win any elections. And there'll be a super minority at that point. And then, just like if too much of one side, left or right, gets too much control, if there's a super majority in Congress of a Republican or Democrat side, then the country is just going to slant so far, and it'll just slip away from us, right? Either direction. So it's really bad. And I would like to think that he would never do that because it would destroy the Republican Party. But again, with his arrogance, maybe he thinks he could still get all that support and still have all these senators doing it the Trump way or whatever. But I think realistically, though, it would really hurt us. So that's my little spiel on Trump and the Republican, and kind of they got what they asked for here. And now they got to be careful to not totally fuck themselves for the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, I'll give credit to the presidency in general here that year 4, I'm not sure how well anybody put in that position would have handled what happened this last year. It was probably one of the most intense years of leadership that we've had in a long, long time. I mean, we can probably say that. We could probably take this back to the Great Depression, maybe being involved in the Vietnam War, whatever, right? I mean, there was a lot riding on his leadership. So, and he definitely shit the bed. But I'm just saying, I don't think it would have been easy for anybody. I don't think it was easy for anybody in the world in general. So it was tough times, but it definitely was one of those times where you had to really man up and show people that you can lead. And that didn't really happen. But, what are you going to do? Because you're right in the sense that the Republicans right now, and will I just say, I can say this on both ends of the table. Every single election maybe it's not always the most important thing to do the most dramatic changing thing during that election. You know what I mean? Maybe that's not always the answer to swing the pendulum completely the other way. I'm just saying, it seems like we kind of have this pendulum going back and forth every 4 to 8 years anyways. And it's very dramatic, but it almost kind of is a wash to a certain extent. Just for instance, there's been so many things that have happened in the past 4 years that have been positive. And before that, there was equally just as many positive things during the Obama years, right? It was just socially, especially with the decriminalization and legalization of medical marijuana and stuff like that. That was huge. Never would have happened, in an all Republican controlled body of Congress. It just wouldn't have happened. So you got to take the good with the bad, but it is pretty interesting. Again, we're look like we are, again, swinging the pendulum very hard the other way. And hopefully, I like to be an optimist here that it will kind of balance out and we'll meet somewhere in the middle. But it is interesting that every 48 years, it's like a polar opposite 180-degree shift in policy, right? What are we doing right now?
And I don't even know if it's every 4 years. It's almost every 2 years. My prediction for 2022 is that unless there's the Patriot Party, right, that pulls a bunch of voters, the GOP probably ends up with the House majority again. I'm just going to say that because that's just what happens after a presidential election. Almost all the time, either the Senate or the House goes the opposite party at midterms. Yeah. And if you look through the history, it's almost like clockwork. Yeah. Right. One of the bodies of Congress will swing back over the other way against the party of the president. And it's been true almost every single president for the last 40 years.
Yeah. This is true. And it is, again, I just kind of, I guess, just taking that a little bit further, there's always this hardcore desire to, it's kind of the grass is greener kind of scenario, right? Always, every couple of years, there's you know what, this is craziness. We need to have more liberal policies in here. We need to do this, that, and that. Then you get that. And then it's nice for kind of what you were looking for, but then you realize there's a lot of side effects and other things that you don't like about it, right? And people get sick of that. And they're like, man, we really need to be more fiscally conservative. We really need to, our military is getting weak as fuck. What are we going to do? We dismantled this. And then you get that back. And then it's a vicious fucking cycle, dude. It's an all or nothing kind of thing, though. It is interesting to me. It seems like there's never, especially in recent history, there's never anybody that really will come out and say that they want to be in the middle. They want a little from column A and a little bit from column B. That would be too centric of our partisan politics, so it's interesting.
Well, the far right and the far left just won't have it.
No, they won't.
So I was actually talking to Jess about this yesterday. Because we were talking about Portland, right? So we were watching Cavuto. Yeah, you heard me.
I love Neil.
So we were watching Cavuto, and he had on he's like the police union person up in Seattle, right? Obviously, it's a conservative channel, so a conservative guy, right? And he's on there talking about the recent violence that's been happening in the last couple of days in Portland and Seattle.
Pretty intense too.
Right. And he's up there while he's like, oh, this is Antifa. And I'm like, well, Antifa is an ideology. Antifa's not actually like a militia or a group of people, right? But they are right in one thing. They're far left extremists. They are. I went the other side with it and read an article from the Post, Washington, not New York.
Gotcha.
So
the that's owned by Jeff Bezos,
right? So like, if there's any slant here to spend this, they'd have it. And then their article was the same thing. These are far left extremists, right? That are pissed off that Biden won and he's a centrist, and that they're not going to push progressive enough policies under Biden, and they're fucking rioting and they're fucking losing their shit over there. But that's where the discussion led at that point. So whether you're far left or far right, the thing about policy, and everyone just wants, if I'm a progressive or whatever, like an AOC type, right? Oh, I want all these done right away. We need to move forward. We need to move fast. Maybe, but there's another half of the country, as we saw by the, 74 million votes or whatever that Trump got, that you also have to bring along with you when you do things. So you're not only passing policy that's acceptable and at least moderate enough for the other half to at least swallow, right? But you have to culturally bring everyone together over time. So to implement substantial change, you have to not only change policy, but culture over time. And the only way to do that, I'm sorry to say, is by fucking moderate policies that can meet in the middle and get a larger chunk of the country to move with you in this ideology and these implementations of policy. If you go too radical, you're going to create divisiveness, and you're going to lose a lot of people. That'll create a grassroots movement, and that'll fight back, and that'll eventually grow into a bigger movement. And we see it over and over and over and over. So whether that's why we need a Joe Biden. That's why we need the Mitt Romneys, right? We need those guys near the middle, so that we can try to move things together that make sense with concessions on both sides. I know people hate to hear it, but you have to inch forward with a lot of things. You can't just, you got to have a little foreplay in American politics. You can't just jam it in.
Yeah, you can, but it's going to hurt, and it's going to leave somebody upset at the end of the day. No, you're right. It's going to cause what happens with these blanket rip off the Band-Aid kind of partisan policies is it leaves the other side feeling more disenfranchised, more polarized, creates, like you said, more divisiveness. And that's not going to do anything with the unity theme that we have going on. You know what I mean? Can't happen.
No, absolutely. And that kind of brings us into all the executive orders. Okay. So just a brief breakdown, if there's people that don't pay attention and aren't political nerds, every Democrat or Republican president comes in, they pound a bunch of executive orders, right? Typically the things on the chopping block are like environmental issues, national forest reservations, keep people from drilling oil. You go with the Planned Parenthood funding and all of that, right? So the Democrats will fund more to provide more, robust Planned Parenthood stuff, not necessarily like abortions, because the government doesn't fund abortions, but just like, sexual reproduction stuff in general, they'll fund more. And then the Republicans will go and it's like, well, Planned Parenthood is associated with abortion, so we're going to strip as much funding away as we can so that we can spin it to our people. Look, we're fighting abortion. So it's just that always goes back and forth for like 30 years now. So there's all these executive orders that keep flip-flopping. And the thing about executive orders, I was trying to explain to my son. It's like, well, what's the difference between an executive order and a law? And I was like, oh, okay. So executive orders are laws, sort of, but they're temporary laws. Like, if you want something done and to leave your legacy as a president, you can make an executive order, but then you go push legislation and actually get an amendment to the Constitution, right? You go get a law on the books. That's much harder to overturn. Executive orders, just they sign it and it's done. Right, every single president. So it doesn't mean anything. I mean, even if it does mean something substantial, at most it's temporary, 4 or 8 years.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the biggest thing is the executive orders can be overturned with the sign of another executive order, right? Whereas when it's put into legislation, then it's kind of concreted more into policy, into our Constitution, and you actually have to override it with more legislation, which takes a lot more people and a lot more time and a lot more agreeing, right? So yeah, it is. It seems like the executive orders in general, and I get it, right? They're more like I wouldn't say they're empty statements, right? But they're definitely there to make a point, right? They're there to make a point with what they're supposedly going to be what they're about, what they've been campaigning on, and to appease their base, right? That's They're coming in with the executive orders, and you're like, there's my guy. Fuck yeah. Put a hold on all the immigration shit. Let's turn that around. Roll back everything with fossil fuels. Let's get that renewable energy going. It's just a bunch of stuff that the left really wants and they stand by, which is, I get it, right? And we had the flip side on the in 2016, 2017. So yeah, it's interesting.
Look at how it turned out. Just a few years later, they're all gone. I mean, that's the thing. These executive orders, they're feel goods. It's something to spin. They're purely political, and they do impact. Don't get me wrong. They do impact for a short period of time, but their biggest impact is on votes. Right? That's what they're really about. They're about getting votes and keeping power and pandering to your base.
Yeah, and a lot of what Trump did, just to kind of highlight this, if he would have got a second term and the Senate would have stayed being a majority Republican, then a lot of these executive orders could have been turned into some more ironclad, legislation in the next 4 years. They'd have time to do that. Yeah. Right. If they really wanted to, now the executive orders kind of laying the groundwork, pointing the direction that you want to go, and then you follow up with support to get the legislation. But obviously now the pendulum has the other way, and we're seeing a lot of just being flipped around. So it's interesting. We're going to talk about it a little bit more. For sure. Here's the other thing I wanted to mention, which I thought was interesting about, Biden and Trump out. I do, again, and I don't know if we talked about this on the last show. I think this is a very positive thing for the image of our country, especially on the world stage, right? Having Trump gone and having just somebody else there that isn't like Trump in general, right? I mean, I think we pissed off plenty of the world. Or at least gave the world a very bad impression of what's going on over here in our leadership. So I think it's really good for image-wise for Biden to be in. I do find something very interesting, and I'm wondering is this going to be an extended, maybe just because it was like a long time coming with the media, like they have like a honeymoon kind of feeling with Biden being the president right now. I've noticed there's been very limited, besides Fox News, there's been very limited adversarial kind of attitudes towards what he's doing at all right now with a lot of the left media. So much so, I don't know if you notice this, but immediately after inauguration, you know how CNN always had that really just nasty reminder of how many people have died from COVID and how many people have cases in the US and cases here and there. It's always on the right-hand side of the screen.
Like the little static ticker.
Yeah, the stick is gone. It's gone. It's gone. So there's no reason to remind the world of how deadly the virus is and how many people it's attacking now, blah, blah, blah. They strategically just decided to go ahead and pull that off of, basically on the side of the screen on almost every single different newscast they had. But very subtle things here to I don't know. I don't know if it's maybe they were sick of it. Maybe they were sick of being bummers and being kind of Debbie Downers about what's going on with the pandemic. But it is interesting. They wanted to remind you all the time of how much this was just going across not only the United States, but the world, how many people's lives it was taking while Trump was in office. And immediately after he's out of office and Biden's in, the tracker is not nearly as big of a deal because they don't want that to be pointed at Biden. They don't want that to be associated with the Biden presidency. And I get that. It's cool. It's not necessarily something that he had to deal with from the genesis of it happening. But I mean, we're still in the middle of a pandemic right now. So it'll be interesting to see. And even like the first the press conference, who's the new press secretary for Biden? She's got red hair.
Jen Psaki.
Yeah, something like that. But I was watching something where they were showing, it's funny. Was it Sean Spicer too? You remember? Spicy.
Oh, yeah. Spicy, baby.
He got spicy. But no, they were showing the first press conference in 2017 and then showing, clips from the one last week or what have you. And I will tell you, man, the questions that were asked of Spicer, a little bit harder, a little bit more combative, more adversarial. Do I think it's a bad thing? Absolutely not. We've talked about this before with journalism, but we should never have, in my mind, the majority of media should never be in love and smitten over who's in office or what party's in office. It's dangerous because basically a lot of things can happen without anybody checking it or anybody looking into it. Minimal investigation. Now, is there a cause for that? I'm not saying that, right? But I did think it was kind of eye-opening how combative and adversarial it was in 2017 and more congratulatory, more just inquisitive, more softball type questions that were asked in the recent last couple of weeks here. So I'm hoping that this is just a honeymoon experience, that that's going to eventually wear off and the news is going to get back to work, hopefully. But I don't know. We'll see, man. That's the other thing that I've noticed here is we kind of had the same thing when Obama was president. I think I want to say Obama even was more of a celebrity type president than even Trump. Not that he was like a reality show star, but he was kind of more like a rock star, especially how he was treated when he went on The View and he went on other places.
He
you know what I mean?
gained a lot of fame because of his ability to speak.
Yeah.
It made him
very
a rock
good.
star. Yeah.
Yeah, he was very good. And I've said it before too. I think he's probably one of the most intelligent, the way he carried himself, the way his vocabulary, very careful, calculated guy, very, very even keeled, never showed like that his feathers got ruffled and got, out of hand or, lost his cool or anything like that. There's a lot of positives to carrying yourself like that, especially when you are the image of the United States. It makes a lot of sense, but it is interesting. I just wonder how long this is going to go on, if it ever stops, and are we actually going to have people questioning what the president and his administration are doing, as much so as the last 4 years? Because it seemed like there was overwhelming, and some of it is very warranted, right? Some of it was very warranted why they were all over Trump and his administration's ass, because they were doing some fucking weird, shady shit. But I think every single president does. I just think it's different self-interest and different people that are influencing him, So I am interested to see how long that goes on, Bob. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I think as far as like the first part of that with Spicer and Psaki, I think Spicer's also abrasive.
Yeah. Well,
whereas Saki's much more professional and polished when she's speaking. Whereas Sean Spicer like instantly started like raising his voice and taking questions personal.
Didn't he like make it just like a couple of months or something like that before he got canned?
Quite a while. It was like 6 or 8 months.
Okay.
It was a minute. But then after he went, our favorite press secretary in the Mooch came in.
Yeah, baby.
That was the 2 weeks. He made 2 weeks.
Yeah. That was the one that made it 2 weeks.
He told someone in the White House to like suck his dick or something, and then got fired. So,
which
even
honestly,
in the Trump administration, he's like, you can't say that in front of people. You have to like, you hit the special lock button on your door before you start sexually harassing women at the White House. You can't. You have to hit that. You have to hit the Diet Pepsi button. So other than that, as far as the honeymoon goes, I don't know. I wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention to the temperature of the room. um, when Saki gave her first presser, but
Mhm.
I was more enamored with the fact that there was a press secretary that was giving a daily briefing, and that the press secretary is now going to be giving daily briefings, daily. So, because Trump stopped that. It was
Mhm.
just whenever we need to spin, we're going to throw McEnany on, and she's just going to talk our talking points and kind of skirt questions and just keep to the talking points, like a rally, right? Like an interview after a political rally. So it became like, to where McEnany would come on, and you never really got a whole lot out of her except for like the talking points. But
I'll tell you one thing though. I always wanted to grab her little fucking notebook from her because she had literally every point counterpoint written down in that fucking
yeah,
thing. She's like, "Hold on." Here we are. It's like Jesus
yeah, because
Christ.
that was all prepared, and it was just like,
Yeah.
well, if you're asked this, it's right here. If you're asked this, it's right here, and then stick to their lines instead of. So the truth doesn't have to be scripted, right?
No,
It's
and it's kind of worrisome that it was so much scripted. That to me is like, hey, don't answer anything with, off the cuff or just answer anything directly. Make sure to check your notes and prepare yourself with what your lawyer would want you to say. You know what I mean? Like, seriously.
What is your take on Fauci now? Did you see the last few interviews he's had where he basically was just like, yeah, I was hamstrung by the Trump administration. I wasn't really allowed to talk. I wasn't really allowed to go on shows. I had
Well,
to
we
stick
saw
to the
that.
talking points, and I couldn't. He's like, I'm so glad now that the Biden administration just kind of, they don't monitor me at all. It's the facts of the facts, and that's what it is. And we're going to go off of what the research says. And now the research may change, but the facts will then be the facts, and that's just how it goes. And he seems so relieved, right? Like no one was like after him all the time, like giving him shit and trying to muzzle him.
Well, you just mentioned too, like Trump did have all of the resources at his disposal, but when something was said from an expert that he didn't agree with, well, you're no longer the expert anymore. You're fake news. You know what I mean? It's very unfortunate, but he did that to, I can't remember her fucking name. It's Deborah something. The other, yeah,
Burks.
No, not Berkowitz. No, you know what I mean. But yeah, both of
Yeah.
them. I mean, they both pretty much got silenced by Trump after a while because what they were saying was not in line with what he wanted to tell the American people. It's like, hey, you can't scare
And
everybody
really,
like
he
that.
just didn't want to hear what was happening. More importantly, he didn't want us to hear what was happening.
Exactly.
Right. He didn't
No.
want the public to know like really what was going on. So that's comforting to know that, Fauci can kind of just say whatever he wants. You don't just see him when he's with the administration, right? You see him now off on his own, doing his own thing, because we need to let that guy work. But kind of the day one executive orders, I mean, obviously Biden had several months to prepare, right, since the election. I'm sure he's been having his administration, his team, as soon as he's gotten them in, and I'm
Mhm.
sure he had a pretty good idea long before the election of who those people were, if they weren't already working for him for free
Sure.
at that point. So when they're putting together, like the very first thing, I believe, was the COVID relief package, right, the new one,
I hope
1.9
so.
trillion, a lot of money. Basically, as far as what most of us will see, is that he's bumping that $600 back, which was actually proposed by Trump. Several Republicans, like Ben Sass, wanted $2,000 last time, didn't get it. Marco Rubio wanted $2,000 last time, didn't get it. And so Biden's coming in and said, "Hey, this looks fairly bipartisan. Let's just bump that up to the $2,000." So it's going to be a $1,400 level, topping off that other one and basically getting it up to 2,000. Now,
Sure.
the rest of it's different, right? Because now he's throwing money at schools because he wants to see how we can safely get our kids back into school, even if we're still lingering and the vaccine's still rolling out, because
I
that's
was
important.
very happy to see that. I think that
Right.
is a bipartisan idea where everybody in the country is quite frankly sick of kids not
Because,
being in school.
oh God, we need it.
Yes. And parents, all the parents out there, stiffy parents can attest that we want these kids back in school for a variety of reasons, not just selfishly. There's a lot of
Yeah.
importance. There's a lot of importance for just academics, but there's also the social aspect of kids and their and their development that is not going to happen with them isolated sitting in front of a fucking TV screen or an iPad or something like that. Just
Yeah,
not.
and I think socially and emotionally, is even more important than their academics. Personally, from my experience with my own kids,
Oh yeah,
I
I
think
agree.
that's the part that's hurting them more. And I see it from time to time. The kids kind of having like little tiny meltdowns, right, from time to
Hmm.
time, just about wanting interaction, wanting friends. So just needing that. So I think that's super important. He's also, of course, funding a lot more of the distribution. He wants the vaccine as part of this relief bill to be more federally funded and coordinated. As before we had talked about on the show, that
FEMA baby.
basically Trump was like getting them to the states and letting them do their thing. But a lot of states are hurting right now because of cutbacks, because of their own budgets, because of the way that COVID has impacted their own ability to employ fully staffed and all of that. So he wants more of a federal coordination involving the National Guard to get out these vaccines. And so there's several $billions going towards that. Here's the part that I don't really understand at all.
Bob, give me a here's the deal. Come on, give me a here's the deal.
Here's the deal.
Yes, now you got me.
He's trying to bump minimum wage up to $15 an hour in the COVID relief package. So I really hope that this is just a negotiating tactic to make it more bipartisan, so that they'll trim that out or change it or lower it or something, to work with the Republicans to get more Republicans on board with this relief package.
Sure.
And if it's not, then I think it's a bad idea. If this just isn't negotiating tactic, then I think it's a bad idea. We had talked earlier in the week about minimum wage, right? And one of my big concerns about the minimum wage, and I had said, is $15 an hour the floor of the lowest state as far as inflation goes? Because we all know that the minimum wage needs to go up a little bit to keep up with inflation, right? But is $15 an hour really that for like Podunk, Nebraska? You know what I mean? The someone that owns like still earns like a merchandise store out in the Boonswoggles, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Probably not, right? So I did some research and I looked online, and actually nationwide that floor looks to be more like $12 an hour, so a little bit more appropriate, and then leave the rest up to the cities and states if they want to go higher.
Yeah, 100%. That's what we had talked about too. I don't think right now, and especially, what's really interesting too. I was listening to an ex-CEO of some type of restaurant chain or something like that, just saying that the blanket federal $15 an hour right now as part of the COVID relief bill, kind of contradicts the COVID relief aspect of it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like, yeah, you're literally going to increase the cost of labor for businesses that are hanging on by a thread right now, still on the ass end, but still in the ass of a pandemic. And we're literally going to just fucking shoot this right into every single business owner's arm and hope that they can stay afloat and in some cases, increase their cost of labor 50-75%, depending on what they're paying. It's
just to point in, I'll add on to that, also exponentially increasing the amount of PPP loans needed, because those are for payroll, right? So if people like have to make more money, then they have to like get a higher loan also. Like, so I agree, man. I think that's crazy.
It is interesting. And what's something that I think that we both kind of landed on is, which making a lot more sense here. I agree with you too, because $12 seems more feasible. Not that it's lower, but just taking into consideration, there are some places, God, I don't fucking live in one, but there are some places in the country where you can get by on a hell of a lot less money than I'm used to. And fantastic, right? The reason why these places are so cheap is nobody really likes to live there. They're not as desirable on a national level, whatever it is. But I like the idea of having take care of the floor. Make sure this number isn't completely arbitrary. You know what I mean? Just pulling it out of the fucking thin air because it sounds nice to people in San Francisco or whatever it is. But we had talked about this too, and you had just mentioned it, that somebody in Mobile, Alabama does not nearly need the amount of money to live as somebody in San Francisco, California, just to use two dramatic things. So I could literally see them doing this, just kind of analyzing the landscape, analyzing the cost of living, inflation, just everything about a certain area. I think it should even be handled on the county level, to be honest with you, because I just take, for instance, California. I think there's still a dramatic cost of living difference between Barstow, right? California or something like that in the middle of nowhere, in San Francisco or Los Angeles. So I think that needs to be taken into account too. But who knows? You may need to have like a $35 minimum wage in San Francisco in that
Right.
area, right? And then like a $10, $12, whatever it is, right? In Mobile, Alabama, or and $15 in rural California. Still, the cost of living is higher than other states, but all that needs to be taken into account. And you had mentioned something when we were talking before, which again just kind of points back to what we were laughing about this being kind of contrary to COVID relief right now. This is not the time to literally dramatically raise the cost of labor for businesses that are just trying to fucking make it to next month. And you had mentioned the slow rollout, right? Like, hey, we're going to do this. We've analyzed the numbers. We got this on point. This is good. This is going to be the minimum wage here, 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 and here. This is the floor for the entire nation. Now, what we're going to do, so it's not a shock to so many businesses and put them right out of business, is we're going to slowly roll this in over the next 6 months or so, which kind of would make sense for where we would be at if you think about it. Fingers crossed, with vaccine distribution and herd immunity at this point, right? If we can actually get to the point in 6 months where we are actually getting back to quote unquote normal in a lot of facets of business and commerce, then slowly kind of just rolling out a increase maybe of like $1 or $2 every couple, every month or so for the next 6 months to get them where they need to be and give these businesses time to prepare for it, right? They may need to slim down their payrolls a little bit to prepare for this, whatever they need to do, but at least they've got a running 6 months or something like that. That's an arbitrary number I just picked out, but something where they can prepare, get used to it. You can phase it in, and then you can kind of, like nice prison sex, you can ease it in, right? You know what I mean?
or there's a couple of ways. So I mean, you say 6 months. I mean, I'm thinking 6 years, like just like slow
Sure.
boil this thing until like we can get it up to where it needs to be, and then maybe offer like subsidies. So if you're
So you're going
small,
the tantric prison sex route.
yeah,
huh?
like if you're a small business that has under 10 people, obviously it's probably going to hurt you. Well, you've already built your business model around the way that things are. So maybe there's tax breaks and subsidies to help transition, right, for you while you try to acclimate to this new environment. And maybe that takes 5 to 10 years as the economy kind of gets better and recovers and grows. And then the cost of living adjusts to the minimum wage raise, because that'll happen. The second people can afford to spend a little bit more, companies are going to charge more. So that's going to happen. Interest rates are going to have to shoot up to balance things out. There's going to be this crazy economic turmoil for the couple of years after all this happens. So if there's something to help small businesses, maybe. But is now the time to be addressing this as part of the COVID relief? Because that sounds like a negotiation that could take years.
It sounds like something that could take years. And honestly, I could see it as not only a bargaining piece, like you were mentioning, and that's optimistic, but I could also see it as a reason to stall things happening, right? We could literally be going back and forth about the minimum wage bullshit. More and more businesses are suffering and going under, and people are dying from COVID. It's just
literally in the plan that they're waiting on to get their PPP loan to stay in business.
Yeah, it's ironic. It's quite ironic. Yes, it is. So no, I agree 100%, man. But I'll tell you what, I think, and I just want to hard pause real quick here because I'm getting thirsty. I'm out of coffee. And I want to discuss a few more notable executive orders, and I think just hot topics really that we should address right now. But let's go get ourselves a cocktail, man. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm game for that.
Let's do it.
Cheers, Scotty.
Oh, cheers all the way. Cheers to your tits.
Cheers for fears.
Oh, it's a great band.
Cheers for beers.
Recline that thing all the way back. Pour yourself a nice little bottle of bubbly.
Talking about taking your sweet fucking time, huh?
Yeah, it's well, new year, new you. I'm sure you're gonna get back to doing the stairs here pretty soon, right? So.
Well, I had to make the orange juice, and that shit was really frozen. It took so long to stir that.
Oh boy, see, I just used some Simply Orange, but let's get in there. What do you got? What do you got for me?
Boom.
Nice. I like the color. Hey, that's a lovely, lovely highball glass there.
It is. I had a really good friend give it to me.
Sounds like a gem of a guy. Ooh,
Oh, that's good.
that's really good.
You want to explain to everyone what we're having today?
Yeah, this is a unique one. This is an intro. That's really fucking good though. Hold on, one more sip.
Yeah, it's really good.
Damn.
This would be in the TST penny dropper category.
Yes, it would. And Bob's not even fucking around here. This drink, it's a legit drink. I shit you not, guys. This one is called Your Tongue, My Panties. And this was actually pretty funny when we're going over what we're gonna whip up this weekend for our show. And I mentioned what the name was. You were like, oh wait, no, is it your tongue or my tongue? And whose panties is it again? I was like,
Wait,
doesn't.
it's okay. It's got to be your tongue.
Oh my, but Stiffies, this is
I
not
get
only-
a good look at a girl's panties by sticking my tongue up there. But wouldn't you take the butcher's word for it?
Ew. Oh man. But this is shall we say this is kind of a summer drink? What do you think?
Yeah, I would have this anytime though. That's really good.
It's really good. So let me break it down what it is, guys, because honestly, the name caught my attention as I was perusing through my bartender black book. But then what was in it looked pretty goddamn tasty. So, guys, first of all, both me and Bob have introduced, I think, a much needed addition to the bar with what we purchased this weekend, right? But Southern Comfort. There is a lot of drinks with Southern Comfort in it. Do you notice that when you're kind of going through the bartender book? There's a lot more than I thought. But this is a drink that has 1/2 ounce of rum, coconut rum. So I would just say like a Bacardi, like a white rum or something like that. Coconut rum, peach schnapps, and then to top it off, these are all 1/2 ounces, by the way, and then 1/2 ounce of Southern Comfort. Then you do 2 equal parts of cranberry juice and orange juice. I put mine in the shaker and shake that fucking
I do
bitch all
too.
crazy. Yep. And then fill it up with a nice glass, tall glass full of ice, and then just top it off with, I would say, probably like 1 ounce or 2 of lemon lime soda.
Yeah,
something
there
like that.
wasn't a lot of room left after all of that and the ice and everything, but yeah, I would say that sounds about right. Maybe a couple ounces at most of Sprite.
This is a fucking dandy, though. I'll tell you that
It's
right
good.
now.
Yeah,
I have
Jess
this.
said she loved it because
Yeah.
it piqued her interest when I told her what it was.
She's
But
like,
then she looked at the
"Oh."
ingredients when I was at the store just so she could tell me what to get. And when I was making them, she's like, "Yeah, I want one of those." So I doubled up the recipe and made 2. But
I like that. So initially you tell Jess and she's like, wait, hold on. So wait, my tongue, your panties, Bob? It's like, is that how that works? I'm intrigued.
Yes.
I'm intrigued.
keeping
Yo,
it spicy.
Sean Spicy. But goddamn, that's a good one, man. You know, when I was actually thinking today, I was thinking like kind of going kind of a little bit whack and doing a zombie. So it's a kind of, it's an island type drink, but the one in the bartender book is some kind of weird revised hardcore version of it. And I was like, I'm not making that. It's like has like measuring of sugar and sugar cubes and all this other shit. I'm like, nah, none of that. But this is good. This is really good.
Yeah, it is good. It's really simple to make. It just involves a lot of booze. Luckily, we have a lot of booze. So
I'll tell you what. And I'll tell you something else. I felt like a fucking moron, but honestly, I think we talked about this too. And it's so funny that we discussed this. And then I went to the liquor store to pick up the SoCo, right? And this was kind of funny. I go there. Elizabeth is with me because we're doing shopping rounds together, and she's already just like had it after Costco. She's tired. She wants to go home and eat lunch or whatever. I was like, hey, we got a couple more stores to go to. Go to the local grocery store to pick up a couple things I don't get at Costco, and of course the liquor store to pick up my SoCo. And I'm like, hey, babe, we're gonna be in and out of this place super quick, honey. Don't even worry about it. I already know what I want. It's one thing, super easy. And of course, I haven't had Southern Comfort. We did talk about this. I haven't had Southern Comfort since 2002. Does that sound right to you? At J10?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason, kids, why I haven't had Southern Comfort since then is somebody had brought over Southern Comfort 100 proof. I proceeded to be a wet behind the ears young punk fool and drink most of the 5th with this gentleman, and I got blackout drunk, feeling really nasty that night. The next day, just not good feeling. So when you have one of those kind of incidents, you tend to shy away from that type of alcohol for call it 25 years or so.
A couple, decades. It's
no big deal. So I hadn't had it in forever, but I'm sitting there thinking to myself, okay, look, I'm no rookie now. I bought so many things for the bar. I know where everything is in the liquor store. store. I know where the themes are. So I'm thinking SoCo's a flavored, liqueur type drink almost. So I'm just like, it's got to be in that aisle with the 99 bananas, all the different types of cherry liqueur and blue curacao and all that good stuff, the Galliano, all those kind of just flavored, spiced liquors. I walk up and down the aisle probably like 3 or 4 times, 2 aisles. I can't find anything that looks remotely like Southern Comfort. So I'm like, you know what? Okay. My daughter's getting a little bit annoyed with me. I just start pacing up down all the aisles. Couldn't find it anywhere. And I was like, what the fuck, dude? I've seen Southern Comfort a million times in the liquor store. Of course, when I'm looking for it, I can't find it anywhere. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to bite the bullet, do what I normally don't do. And that's ask somebody for help. Kind of like how I don't stop and ask for directions. Yes, I know. Like I told you, a new leaf over here, buddy. So I see the guy stocking wine. I go up, hey man. And I literally just cut off these 2 ladies that are looking in the aisle right there. I don't even care sometimes. I'm a total asshole. I'll just cut off what they're doing. I'm like, dude, hey, can you help me find the SoCo? I can't find the SoCo anywhere. And he's like, yeah. Hold on. Yeah, come here. It's got to be over here. And he starts walking towards the aisles that I looked in. And of course, I'm trying to save face a little bit, thinking like he's going to point it out. And it was like right in front of me the whole time. So I'm like, yeah, I probably missed it. You know what I mean? I'm looking for it. It's probably just staring at me right there. And he can't find it either. And he's kind of going up and down. He's like, it should be here. I was like, yeah, I even looked in the, the sections that were empty to see if the tag like said SoCo, maybe you guys were sold out. So long short, he asked the guy that's doing the register, hey, where's the Southern Comfort? And he's like, it's by the Fireball. And I'm like thinking to myself, and I was like, wait a minute. And I'm walking and I'm saying this out loud too. And I was like, I mean, that doesn't seem far-fetched at all. And then I looked at him and I was like, is Southern Comfort a whiskey? And then he goes over there. Sure enough, Fireball, 4 different types of SoCo. And I pick it up. Also flavored fucking whiskey. Of course. I was like, I couldn't even remember what type of booze it was because I haven't drank it in like 25 years. And then what was really funny is I go down there to pick it up. Guy's like, cool, man. Do you need anything else? Like, no, I'm good. He's like, man, I haven't drank that stuff in like 20 years. I was like, no shit, me too. That's interesting. And I proceeded, like I do, just to tell this random stranger about the story of me getting blackout drunk 25 years ago and how I didn't have
Of course, because he needs to know that.
He does need to know that. Yeah. So after I told him my full name and where I was from, I proceeded with that story. So anyways, it was interesting. I never thought I'd get lost in the store looking for SoCo, but now I know why. And it's actually, it's very good. It's been a long time since I had it, but if you're not drinking the entire 5th at like age 20 or 21, 19 or whatever it was, it's actually it's a really good flavored whiskey. So there.
Yeah, I indulged a little bit on Friday when I picked it up too, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's right. We used to drink this because it was good.
Yeah. Then you kind of ruin things when you drink the entire 5th. But yeah, no, I'm quite pleased with it. But again, SoCo's in the bar now. Just another thing in the bar. Oh, did you know this? I had to just break this real quick. Do you know they have a Galliano coffee liqueur in that same cool ass bottle? I was like, whoa, that Galliano looks weird. I was like, oh, Galliano coffee liqueur. Oh, Jesus. I feel like I have to look through the bartender book just to find something that uses it so I can justify going to buy that now.
Well, you can always make yourself a Russian with it. So,
oh my God. Can you imagine? That's going to be like an Italian stallion, a white Russian Italian or something. I don't even know. That sounds dangerous.
I'm going to look for it next time I go to the liquor store and see if I can find it.
It's cool. It's in the same
I
bottle.
love the bottle. Yeah, the bottle's amazing.
Hands down. And I'll tell you what, though, it's a little hard to pour that bottle. Sometimes I pour a little more than I want just because of
it's almost a two-hander because it's so long.
It's girthy. Yeah, it's a big guy. So, but
it's very weird. And for anyone that doesn't know, the Galliano bottle looks like the old school like telescopes that pirates used to use.
That's a good way. Exactly.
That's the Galliano bottle. It's about 18 inches long. And it's this huge telescope looking bottle.
It's really cool. And you know what else I got to get more of too? I just realized this. I got to get some more limoncello, Bob. And I told Jamie yesterday, I was like, you know what? Out of all the things me and Bob have purchased and experienced with the bar, limoncello and Galliano are my 2 new, like I didn't know much about them, favorite kind of boozes that are in the bar.
They're must-haves in the bar.
Oh, 100%.
Because when you need them, you really need them.
Yeah. And there's nothing that can substitute. Like, usually you could be like, you can just do this instead of that, whatever. It's like, no, if you need Galliano or if you need limoncello, you need those things. And there's because no cutting
it's very botanical herb. Tasting kind of like Jaeger and what's that one for the rusty nails?
Drambuie.
Drambuie, right?
Yeah.
Similar to those, but if you try to mix any one of those and substitute with each other, you can't do a Scotch and Jaeger and think it's a rusty nail. It's not. It doesn't work.
You know, what's funny? We laughed about this too. I literally almost stopped a gentleman from buying Benedictine. Like, hey, do you really want to do that? It's like, so it's like, maybe you should scoot over a little bit, 2 shelves up over there, grab yourself the Galliano. You won't be upset. But honestly, I didn't want to step on that because who knows what he was buying it for, but he did pick
He
it up.
might have been making Singapore slings.
Who knows? But it was weird. I was like, ooh, Benedictine, huh? And then I shut myself up. I was like, don't be a douchebag, dude.
It's not being such a douchebag, but it's funny that you recognize shit like that. But that's the type of shit that comes across people's minds when they become connoisseurs of something.
Can I just say we're gracefully stepping into that realm too, which is pretty fucking exciting. I will say, I mean, there's other things that are obviously more pivotal, more instrumental, the house, other things that are going on, but we're venturing into a pretty elite territory. Pretty elite territory.
Even
right
2
there.
years ago, I wouldn't have been able to tell you the difference between a single malt Scotch and Irish whiskey, or fucking what's the difference between whiskey and bourbon. I wouldn't have been able to tell you all that, but times they are a changing.
Yeah, you're waiting for somebody to ask you now at the liquor stores, like, you know what? Like talking to themselves, kind of. I don't really understand the difference. Like, funny that you didn't ask me.
Right? It's like, interesting. Well, pull up that chair. Let's have a talk.
You start. The guy's already like 10 years older. Start calling him son. Son, pull up that chair.
Right? Some old man. Yeah, that's it. Well, let's get back to this list of shit that's going on, because I mean, if we take too long, Biden will have passed more executive orders, so we got to stay on top. We got to stay on top of this.
This is true. Well,
I think he's got like 10 more scheduled for tomorrow.
He's got a lot. He's a busy guy, and you'll see this too. Biden right now is literally getting hand cramps, not only because he's 78 years old and he's got arthritis, because he's doing a lot of signing. And when you sign all your closing documents for that house, you're going to be like, what the fuck? It's almost going to be comical, Bob. You're going to be working out your hand like, man, that was really a lot. And here's another pound of documents that we need your John Hancock on. It's pretty intense, but he probably got some. What do you think would be good for the hand cramp? Do you think, are you going heat or are you going cold? How do you get that going?
I would say it's probably heat.
Okay.
With cramping, but he can always just mix it up and start signing like the stranger and going with the left hand.
Oh, interesting. That might be more exciting.
It looks like a 5-year-old signed it. It's with the left hand.
It's exciting. It's exciting and stimulating because not only is somebody else signing your papers now, you can't really make out what it said. But no, here, a couple other things that I wanted to mention here. We talked about this a long time ago too, but I do want to talk about just the environmental aspect of what's going on too. I mean, the executive orders. I mean, we've got a couple of things, right? We got rejoining the Paris Accord. We got, and what seems to be a pause. And like you had mentioned this to me earlier, right? This is a little bit murky for some folks. He's not necessarily halting all oil drilling right now in the United States, but it's more licenses, right? Is that
so,
kind of?
So here's what he did. So just let's rewind a little bit to say what Trump did.
Give me a here's the deal. Give me a here's the deal before you start talking.
Well, Scotty, here's the deal.
Yeah.
Right? So with Trump basically was selling oil rights to federal land to his donors. Mm-hmm. Right, is basically what that was. So oil folks that donate a large amount of money to Trump's campaign, he then went around and signed an executive order to open up federal protection and wildlife reserves in Alaska to prospecting and drilling. Sure. Right, so obviously it's a pretty sore spot. A lot of things to protect up there. So what Biden did is he doesn't want that. A long time, the federal land in the Arctic drilling has been a staunch no-go for the Democrats, right? And they've been fighting, and it's been going back and forth. Bush was about it. Obama turned it off. Trump turned it back on. Biden's turning it back off. Same thing we talked about with executive orders. So what he did was instead of having time to specifically like go and dig in and write this really robust plan, he just said, I want like a 60-day shut off. I believe it's 60 days of all new drilling and new permits, right? For federal land is really what it's at. But I don't think it's specified for federal land. I think it's in general. So I really believe this is temporary so that he can stop all of that and get a better plan in place and enact that. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next month you see a different executive order addressing that, or even legislation get proposed, right? So we'll keep an eye on that, but it does hurt, right? Especially in New Mexico, we're an oil state, oil and natural gas. So I know there's a lot of concern right now from, friends and family around the state about, well, Biden's shutting off the oil. No, this isn't the transition to clean energy. That's not the plan. It's been pretty clear, and Biden was pretty upfront about it when he was campaigning, that he has a plan that goes through 2035 before real significant change needs to be implemented under his plan. But that's going to be actual legislation that he's going to be proposing with the Democrats, right? So I believe this is just a temporary stop order to get a more robust order and plan, or to get legislation going. But it is concerning because it's a huge red flag, especially when you're talking about unity, when you're talking about the oil folks. And let's be honest, most oil folks are lean to the right pretty far.
Well, I mean, self-interest, right? I mean,
right, of course.
I mean, it makes sense, If
he was like, well, I'm banning IT, I'd be like, you're what?
Hey, wait, I didn't see this coming.
You're putting a stop on IT? What the fuck? So yeah, so there is that. I mean, there's a bunch of things. I want to quickly kind of go through like the coronavirus ones, just to briefly skim over it. I got a little, a little list here that I can quickly just kind of go through them. These are the ones that were signed on the 20th and the 21st and the 22nd, right? So we already know about the COVID-19 relief plan with the $15 minimum wage. We talked about that. And
I'm sure there's a lot of other things packed in there too, but that's just what they do. That's just
right. So there's another one here for the economy. It calls for assistance to those who are struggling to buy food and they missed out on stimulus checks or are unemployed. So if they've exceeded their unemployment limit or still having trouble finding work, then he's offering, I believe it's going to be further unemployment extensions to these folks.
Sure.
He's making the food stamp program a little bit more robust to help out right now. I don't think any of this stuff is permanent. Then there's more coronavirus stuff, right? Accelerate manufacturing and delivery of supplies for vaccination, testing, and PPE, right? So he wants to make it a little bit more robust to protect the hospitals and get the vaccines out. He's directing FEMA to expand reimbursements to states to fully cover the cost of National Guard personnel and emergency supplies. So he's trying to beef up that. Establish pandemic testing boards to expand coronavirus testing capacity across the U.S. So he wants more testing. Establishes a preclinical program to boost development of therapeutics in response to pandemic threats, which is basically our ability to R&D when stuff comes up. Enhances the nation's collection, production, sharing, and analysis of coronavirus data. He's basically sharing data again. Trump kind of put the moratorium on that one. He didn't like the bad pub. It makes sense. He's a TV guy. Now, directs FEMA to create federally supported community vaccination centers so that we can get these large vaccination centers. We have one opening up here at the pit, in fact. Directs the Department of Education and HSS to provide guidance for safely reopening schools and operating schools, childcare providers, and institutions of higher education. So let's get kids and colleges back in full swing, right? Calls on the occupational safety, calls on OSHA to release clear guidance on COVID-19 for businesses, right? Decide whether to establish emergency temporary standards and directs OSHA to enforce worker health and safety requirements. Another thing that Trump had kind of, if you remember, the big example was Tyson Foods. I think it was Tyson Foods in Iowa, I believe it was. And they basically went in, CDC went in, and they had all these recommendations. And then the Trump administration got a hold of the CDC director. He's like, could you soften up the language on that a little bit? So when they actually delivered it, it was no longer requirements, but things that they should do, right?
Yeah. we have some loose recommendations for you. Take it or leave it. You know what's interesting about the bulk of what you just said, though? A lot of the things that he's doing for just for the coronavirus in general seems kind of like logical that everybody should already be doing. And it scares the shit out of me that a lot of these things like weren't already being put in place by private companies or just the states or it's interesting to me that it really takes the president or just it takes people enacting it's just weird. It's weird to me. It's like it seems so logical and so basic that I think a lot of this stuff is interesting that we literally need guidance on some of these things, which is kind of funny to me.
Yeah. And it's very intuitive stuff. And it's not like he's sitting back as the grand mastermind of all this. He's got a team of experts and he's just taking their advice and letting the experts be experts and running them. That's what managers do. I mean, they don't know everything. They hire people that know it. So requires mask wearing in airports on certain modes of transportation, including trains, airplanes, maritime vessels, intercity buses.
That's another thing that seems to me very logical. I mean, it's like mandating this in airports and airplanes. Yeah, who's not doing that and why? You know what I mean? It's like it's almost like just left unchecked. Again, people will kind of just do whatever the fuck they want. It's very interesting to me. I'm sorry to interrupt me.
No, you're good. That was like the last one. At least this was like from the first 2 days of office. But I know there's one that's not on here. Look, there is a couple more. But there's one that's not on here that I paid attention to. But all federal employees and federal contractors are required to wear a mask while in federal buildings and on federal property. So that's a lot of people. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people between the DOE, the DOD, the DOJ, the DOI, all the DOs, right? Millions of people that are going to be required to wear masks while at work. And that's going to help out a lot more than, people think.
Well, I just seems the writing should be on the wall already for a lot of these things. But again, I guess people need to be told what to do to a certain degree.
There is 3 more coronavirus ones. Launches 100 days masking challenge, basically asking everyone to wear a mask, right? Stops the United States withdrawal from the WHO. So he's going back in with the World Health Organization and he's making Fauci the head of the delegation to the WHO. Mm-hmm. He's creating the position of a COVID-19 response coordinator that will be reporting directly to Biden and managing efforts to produce and distribute vaccines and medical equipment, which Trump basically had that, but he was using an admiral to do that. But that also meant that's kind of why the logistics stopped at the states, right? Because that was admiral can't really do much when it comes to states' rights and all that. But that's about all of the COVID stuff. All the rest is like kind of the normal, Democratic v. Republican economy, environment. The census. He did requires non-citizens to be included in the census and appointment of congressional representatives.
I will say this though, I was really, I wouldn't say surprised, but I was a little taken back about the immigration executive order here too. Basically,
the DACA thing.
Yeah, well, basically halting all deportations for the next 100 days. Now, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, so I think kind of free reign. Anybody now can enter the country. You're getting amnesty for people that are already here that could be criminals, all that good stuff. I don't exactly think that should be priority number one. Because basically isn't that just leaving a lot of room for error and bringing a lot more people potentially into the country that we don't have a pulse on when we probably should be focusing on taking care of ours right now. I hate to be that guy. I hate to be an isolationist almost, but kind of seems like that should be the priority now. But again, the immigration thing it's a base of the left, their desire. So
and he's already being sued over the immigration. Already.
Yeah.
Of course. It's our lovely neighbors to the east from Texas. They're suing over the immigration. Yeah. Funny that they're against immigration, because if you go to a construction site where they're building a new neighborhood, it's very interesting, the demographics.
Well, I would say that it's alarmingly English speaking. But no, that seems a little bit out of priority though. It does seem out of priority to literally put a halt on deportations for the next 100 days when potentially the next 100 days are the most critical and taking care of the virus. It just seems.
Yeah.
It seems
I
Seems a
think
little
it
bit
has a lot to
contradictory.
do with DACA.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it's putting a temporary thing to stop anything Trump's doing so that they can get a more robust plan. But
You
that's
know,
easy to say now. We'll see if it actually happens, right? Over
yeah.
the next few months.
Well, and you had mentioned something too. I've seen him as well. Everybody on social media right now. I think they did the same thing when Trump became president too, just to kind of timestamp stuff. But you know what I'm talking about? It's like, hey, today's like, first week or whatever of Biden's presidency. Price of gas is this much. Fucking interest rates are this much. Blah 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 blah. GDP is this much. All this. The stock market's at this level. And you had made a good point too that a lot of these things. This is. I mean, what they're trying to predict is already kind of a known fact, right? That some of these things are rock bottom for bad reasons, or and positives for certain things like interest rates. But these things are going to go up. You know what I mean? And if you know already, like you're not a rocket scientist if you're putting that on your wall on social media, and you already know that the president and his party want to push forward more on the idea of having renewable energy and being more energy efficient and being more sensitive to the environment and climate change. So yes, things like the price of gas is going to go up, especially as we start to try to move further away from just being solely I guess just solely well, we are right now. We're completely solely dependent on fossil fuels, but trying to get away from that. What's that going to do? It's going to cause these things to move up in price, right? So it makes sense. But I'm not really seeing, and we talked about this on episodes before, I think, but I think this is another thing where, and we discussed it earlier this week. We need to have some kind of bridge and some type of government subsidies to take care of the people that will eventually be out of work. Right now, this is something. What's a completely dead industry, Bob?
Basically coal. I mean, it's hanging on by a thread.
Sure. Or I'll just say this: the 1 hour,
sorry.
photo places and Kodak, right, and film development and stuff like that. So it's a completely
That's
dead
pretty
industry.
much dead. Also, a good example of this is whale oil. So when we transitioned to oil, we actually went away from whale oil. Whale oil powered all of our lamps. You know what I mean? Whale oil was huge energy. That was a big piece of the economy of the world, right? So the similar thing now is we're transitioning away from oil and into more electric, solar, wind, waves, whatever you're trying to do. So again, with the conversation that we had, right? It was, what do you do with the oilmen?
Yeah,
they've been on the oil field for 20 years. They're just supposed to just not work, suck it up. Breaking an egg to make an omelet here. Sorry, you're the egg. Or there's we have to at least offer programs. All right. Hey, we know that you're a career oilman. We know that layoffs are happening and that industry is shutting down. So here is free trade school or education so that you can now learn how to work on wind turbines, or now that you can work in solar panel arrays. So now you're going to switch your career path and you're going to come over here and we're going to give you free tuition and help with like unemployment costs and all of that, and pay your bills and help you out while you transition into this new career. That's a significant cost that has to be considered, and we can't just leave these hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people high and dry while we transition into a new energy sector.
And I think that's what's got people so scared. You know what I mean? Is they realize this is going to happen. I'm sure intelligent people have to realize that when you're in an industry like this that does right now more good than bad, but there's still an overarching problem with it if we continue to go this route forever. And we can't go forever. We're going to run eventually out of oil. We're just going to. Maybe it's 100 years down the road, 50 years down the road, 25, whatever it is. But it's going to get more and more scarce just by the definition of it being limited resource. It's not unlimited, right? Unlike, say, to a certain extent, solar power and things like that. I'm sure the sun will burn up someday too, but hopefully that's millions of years away. But yeah, there's got to be some plan in place to take care of these people and help them transition to livelihood at the end of the day. And that's something that I haven't seen anywhere. Now, maybe I honestly haven't researched everything, but have you heard any kind of squeaks about anything like that at all? Or is it just more broad strokes now of what needs to happen?
I haven't heard anything specific, but like I said, at least with Biden, I know his plan is like over the next 15 years, right? So there's two earmarks, right? One is the big one is 2035, and then the next big one is 2050. So, I mean, by 2050, we're supposed to be like near zero carbon emissions, is like the plan. And by 2035, we're supposed to be down to like 25% of what we are now, or something like that. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's definitely a stark tapering off by that point. So there's the time between now and then to try to lead up to this. And I haven't heard anything specifically to address the workforce of the oil and natural gas industry. The only thing that I've heard, we talked about it a little bit off the show, off air, but it was Biden wants free JC, right? Free junior college, free community college, so associate degrees, right? And that's cool. I mean, they're pretty cheap. Most community colleges are pretty cheap. I think a full load of community college here in Albuquerque costs about between $2,000 and $2,500 a semester. So that's not exactly breaking the bank for the taxpayer, considering not everyone will want to go to school. School's not for everyone.
I'm sorry, you lost me at full load.
JCs are great though, because they offer trade certifications. You can go get certified to be a welder there. You can go get your ASE certification, go be a mechanic there. You can start the path towards construction management there, or you can go a traditional route and get into mathematics, business, the normal college stuff there, and get an associate's, or at least get your core curriculum done on the cheap before you can go. Now, there's a lot more transfer scholarship opportunities in most states and federally, transferring from a junior college into a state school. So that can help bridge the gap from some of the lower income people. We're not all born into a family that, pops can just scratch a check every semester. I mean, most of us aren't. That's a hard thing to do. That's like $40K.
And that's definitely a start, though. I mean, it's not specific to oil and gas men, right? It's not specific, but it's definitely a start. I think the biggest thing that a lot of people think in that industry are just fossil fuels in general. There's still people that work in coal, right? I believe there's a few states that it's a very big part of their economy still. Whether or not it be a dying thing or what have you is kind of inconsequential when you really think about it. They're still there. But I think there's a lot of people that just feel without the specific direction that this is going to be a bridge for them to move into an energy or to move into an occupation that is going to thrive in the future and will be there. I think they kind of see themselves as collateral damage to move to being energy efficient and being not energy efficient, but being more green, right? So I think that's the biggest problem right there, is there isn't any direction right now specific to how they're going to address that problem. But goddamn, they are going to do a lot of things to start limiting, I think, what we can do here stateside to produce fossil fuels and to take advantage of their energy. And more, unfortunately, I kind of fear there's going to be more and more of a reliance on foreign aid for just fossil fuels, because we're still going to be living off of fossil fuels for quite some time. And I think a lot of the electric cars and other things that are energy efficient, I think the production of these things like fuel cells and otherwise still use fossil fuels for manufacturing to get them there. You know what I mean? So that's rough too. So I'd really like to see more direction there before we keep taking leaps and bounds to go completely green. I just think that's smart, right? It's one of those scenarios where you can't rip off the Band-Aid completely. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens. So,
and policy wise, like Biden has stated several times that he's not down for the Green New Deal. So he's not down for something drastic like that, because I think he's been around long enough. I mean, he started the Industrial Revolution. So
this is true. I remember that.
He knows how bad it can go. So I think he has a pretty good understanding. And I know that some of the far left is, he's not left enough, but you're not going to get a candidate voted in that's
not yet
that much farther left than Biden.
You know what would need to happen, Bob? We would need to literally have 4 more years down the road. We would have to have some other sick swing of the pendulum, so to speak, and go completely far right. And then maybe 4 years after that, you'll have people looking over at the other grass is greener and the far left, and maybe bring somebody in then. But it's not going to happen anytime soon. And a lot needs to happen the other way before people actually start buying into that philosophy. I think 100%.
Yeah, because I don't buy into it. Um, I think that significant change needs to happen over time.
Yeah.
And if you look back at history, if it takes 10 or 20 years for a social change or a cultural change to happen or shift, that's actually kind of like on par with what happens and fairly quick. And I know that especially with the younger generation, there's this instant gratification with the younger people about I need it now. It has to happen now. But um, we all we all need to take a step back and make sure that everyone's involved in this transition, whether it be politically or an energy transition or economically or how we're doing it. It's dangerous and it's reckless and risky to just make instant changes and hope for the best.
Yeah, and to that point, I'm hopeful, but I'm very interested and a little bit weary about the side effects of a lot of these policies that are going to be going into place regardless. They're just going to happen a few years down the road. Like what happened because of these things, and what are we going to be complaining about, and who's going to be hurting a few years down the road. It'll be interesting to see if it's really not going to be that bad, or if it's going to be a lot worse than we thought. Um, I can only be hopeful, Bob. I'm going to be positive though. Right now,
That
it's
that
interesting to watch it unfold.
that's my job.
Yeah, well,
You can't
trying.
have my sunshine and rainbows moniker.
All right, fine. Fuck it. It's all gonna. Everybody's gonna die. No. Oh my goodness. Speaking of everybody dying, Bob, I think we should maybe move on to a little bit more of a fun subject here.
Yeah, but everyone's just like, those are weird pictures of the Capitol riots behind them.
Yeah, Trump's base looks pretty rough. I mean, I know they had a couple of good weeks here, but goodness gracious.
Just to get a good shot.
That guy,
Oh,
look at, hey, I mean, he's got a great dentist. That's all I can say. For him being rotting right now and decaying, his teeth look phenomenal. I'm just
I put
saying.
some buffalo horns on that guy and give him an American flag, and he's all about it.
Yes. Yes. Bob, tell everybody what we want to talk about today here too, in case it's not glaringly apparent from our backgrounds.
Yeah, we want to talk about our favorite zombie movies, and there's so many to choose from. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, that
But
is.
yeah, I've done a lot of thinking about it. About just kind of, I had to go with like when I first saw it, right? Because we all like to go back and revisit it, but how do those movies hit you when you first watch it is
Yeah.
always kind of the test of a movie, right? Because when
Sure.
you go back, you're chasing the dragon, right? You're trying to get that feeling again when you first saw it and it hit you really hard.
I like how you intertwined drug addiction in there. That was good. That was
You
really
got
good.
to, you got to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Night of the Living Dead for me is right up there. It's not my favorite zombie movie though, but I do gotta say the first time I watched it, the black and white, the nostalgia for George Romero.
I believe so. I know he did
Right.
Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead.
So just kind of the nostalgia, and then trying to picture what it would be like in like I think it was like 61 or something when that movie came out.
Yes.
Just what it would be like and how scary it would be when you saw that for the first time. Then, it's pretty intense. It's a really good movie. My favorite zombie movie though, because it really puts a modern spin on it and how things could really go south and how it could be. I think my favorite zombie movie just might be World War Z.
Wow.
I know.
Interesting.
I know,
The really cracked out, energetic zombies.
Little contemporaries, right?
All right. Interesting. Okay. So World War Z. I know you're a Brad Pitt fan too, so that makes sense.
I do. I love him. I love him.
Well,
He's
who
fantastic.
doesn't? Who
His
doesn't?
TikToks like are super boring and he needs to work on that. But other than that, love the guy.
You know what? I think he'll like that constructive criticism too. He needs to up his TikTok game.
Up your
because-
TikTok game. I mean, doing duets and just staring at the video while you do it doesn't do anyone any favors.
Well, it gives me time to touch myself, so that's good. But okay, that's good. That's good, Bob. I'm gonna go ahead and say here that I did also do a lot of thinking here, and I as I usually do, I started to branch off into two different areas. I was like, well, there's a lot of great comical zombie movies too.
Yeah.
And I was struggling not putting those guys up at the top as I was thinking about this. So I've got two answers, Bob, as I tend to do. I have to say right now, from a comical standpoint, Shaun of the Dead, hands down,
It's a great one.
It's probably one of my favorite movies of all time. Too, a huge Simon Pegg fan. That's a good one. That's a really good one. I do agree that Night of the Living Dead is really good. The original and the remake from I believe 89 or 92, which had the guy that played Candyman in it. Believe it or not, like
Okay.
that was a really good one. But if we're going the serious side of things, I really like Dawn of the Dead, the one from 2003. One
That's
with
a good one.
the one with Ving Rhames in it and everything too, where they have to get held up in that shopping mall or whatever and kind of hunker down there for a while, and then it gets completely overwhelming. So I'd say Dawn of the Dead, probably my favorite one. But then I was thinking to myself, I was like, Jesus, man, like 28 Days Later was a good one.
It was.
Oh man, so it was tough for me. World War Z pretty good. I thought the zombies were a little intense. They were a little too energetic, but that's okay. They were that way in Dawn of the Dead too. Remember, they'd be all slow, and then as soon as they'd see you, they'd start fucking booking it after you and getting all crazy and psychotic, almost like they did PCP or something. But on the other side of it too, I was like, Shauna does, but then I thought about Zombieland.
Yeah,
both
that's a
1
great
and
one.
2. I was like, these are really hard, man. So I would say Dawn of the Dead for me is probably number one on the serious side of things, and then I would have to say as a comical one, I would take Shaun of the Dead. Those are
So
mine too.
I do have another one that like rang near and dear to me that I really loved. And then thinking back on it the first time I watched it, right? Resident Evil.
So
Right?
funny you said that. I was like, is that technically a zombie movie? I was like, well, not really, but I mean, come on. They turn into zombies. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
they're
come on.
absolutely zombies. I mean, later in the other Resident Evils, they turn into monsters and craziness, but
Yeah.
they're still like most of them are zombies, right? And then the first one was Mila Jovovich,
Yeah.
right? And Michelle Rodriguez,
Mhm,
super
mhm.
amazing. First, they go to the mansion,
Yeah.
they go to
That's
the
a good one.
hive, like it's super good. And for any of us that stayed up till 2 a.m, scaring the shit out of yourself in between load times on the PS1.
I was there. I was there in high school too. Yes.
That game was so fucking terrifying. Like so much so that you might find yourself turning it off around midnight when you're by yourself, just like it's too creepy. I'm not gonna play it anymore until it's daylight again. Right.
I agree. It was a scary game. Yeah.
Especially if you're in an altered state. The game was intense. And then back in the day, these kids don't realize, but you get into a horrible spot or whatever, and you think you made it out and you're opening the door. Well, it shows the door opening, but then there's like 12 seconds of load time because it's loading off of a CDR disc, right?
Yeah.
So you're sitting there waiting like, what the fuck is behind this door? Right? And you're terrified before you enter in the next scene. You can just hear your PlayStation 1 churning and burning over there as it's trying to like read the disc, and you're over there like biting your nails, hoping that you only have a little bit of health life and no more first aid spray. You're hoping that you don't get a jump scare right now and kill you, and then you're stuck at the load screen getting killed for an hour trying to figure it out. So
that was intense.
Resident Evil 1 was an intense game, but then when that movie came out, it was so good. I mean, it wasn't perfect, right? It wasn't like the video game, but it was definitely relatable and really, really good. So that was really close for me. I almost went with it, but I just kind of like the modern twist on World War Z a little bit better.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you're right too. I did think about that. I had to actually battle with myself. I was like, does Resident Evil count? Because man, I'm feeling like it should. You know what I mean? And then I shied away from it. And I was like, well, it's not a blanket zombie movie, but whatever they did.
It's
the Umbrella
T-virus,
Corporation.
man. The
Yeah.
T-virus.
The Umbrella Corporation, some sick fucks. I'll tell you that right now. But great movie. And she went on to did like fucking 6 of those. I mean, something outrageous.
I want to say she did at least 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah,
but I know at least 4, but maybe even 5, maybe more. But definitely a lot. And she's got a new one out too. Some Monster Hunter or something. I haven't seen it yet. It looks good.
I don't know. She's been kind of typecast, but not in a bad way at all. I mean, it's like, hey, we need somebody that's going to be the ultimate badass female role, where you're going to kick everybody's ass.
Right.
Big chip on you. We're basically looking for like a female Bruce Willis. Can you do that for us, Mia? He's like, yes, I got that handled.
Our story is a heroine that fights zombies or monsters or supernatural entities. Mila Jovovich. Where's she at?
Yeah.
That's who's going to do it. She does them all.
And goodness gracious, she has not aged very much too. Good for her. You know what I mean? Looking good still.
for sure. Those Victoria's Secret girls, man. It's crazy. It's like they give them like a secret serum or something when they sign them to a deal.
A lot of good stock.
Used to be.
That's right, buddy. Well, I feel like we're almost there, Bob. I think we're pretty much out of time for this week. Do you have anything else you want to tell them? Tell the Stiffies?
No, we'll be keeping an eye on some of the executive orders, and we won't beat the dead horse, too many shows more. But as things come up and they're pertinent, we will bring it up and explain and make sure that everyone's on the same page and kind of what's going on, so that everyone can keep a close eye on it, because not everyone has time to nerd out on politics. So that's a free community service that we like to provide our Stiffies.
And honestly, I think we both can agree to that. We're gonna consciously steer away from being so politically centered on our topics moving forward for a little bit. But right now we can't help it. I mean, this is big stuff right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And plus, we had so much time off. There's been quite a bit of catch up. Maybe next week we'll talk about the significance of the Georgia runoffs. We've yet to really hit that.
Sure.
So maybe we'll talk about that. That's a kind of historical there. There's a lot of fallout that's happening from that, so we should probably hit that at some point. But yeah, that's it. Other than that, another great show. You're welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank you.
We're happy to do it. So same time, same podcast. Next week we'll see you all. Remember to like and subscribe. Tell your friends. If you want any sort of merch, just hit us up. It's Bob at thestifftruth.com or Scott at thestifftruth.com. We respond to all of our emails. So just hit us up or hit us up on Facebook or make a comment in the YouTube and we'll reach out to you. We can square that away. We got some cool stuff in, and we just got some hoodies. We just got some trucker hats. They're going to be good. So
yeah, baby.
We'll be showing you guys that. And other than that, Patreon's always there. If you guys want to make a one-time donation to support the show, would be thrilled to have it. And there's always, if you want to sign up and be part of the show and be one of our patrons and get some perks and bennies, get on the inside there, then that'll be great too. But other than that, it's been awesome, Scott. Another good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And this may not age well, but go Bills, go Packers. We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. See ya.
Put on some pants at least, dude. You're gonna get some skid marks on the bottom of your